The warning lights had been flashing for 3 hours before the ship finally gave up. Lieutenant Maya Collins watched the control panel die piece by piece. First, the navigation went dark. Then the communication system stopped working. Finally, the engine made a terrible sound and went quiet. She was falling toward an unknown planet, and there was nothing she could do about it. Maya grabbed the emergency controls and tried to aim the shuttle toward the ground below. The planet was green and blue, covered with forests and small oceans. It looked peaceful from up here. She knew better. She had read the files about this world before her mission started. Varath 7. A protected wildlife reserve. No humans allowed. The reason was simple. This planet was home to the Varath, a species of predator that the Galactic Union had saved from extinction 200 years ago. The files described them as dangerous hunters with 6 legs, thick fur, and claws that could cut through metal. They were the size of Earth tigers, maybe bigger. They had killed survey teams before. Maya was about to crash land in the middle of their home. The shuttle hit the atmosphere and started to shake. Maya strapped herself into the pilot seat and held on tight. Fire surrounded the windows as the ship fell faster and faster. She could hear metal tearing somewhere behind her. The heat was getting worse. She reached for the emergency pod release button. The shuttle was breaking apart around her. She had seconds left. Maya pressed the button. The escape pod shot away from the shuttle just as the main ship exploded. The force of the blast pushed the pod sideways, spinning it through the air. Maya hit her head against the wall. She felt pain in her ribs. Everything went blurry. When she woke up, she was on the ground. The pod had landed hard. There was a crack running down one wall, and sparks were coming from the control panel. But Maya was alive. She moved her arms and legs slowly, checking for broken bones. Her ribs hurt badly, probably cracked. Her head was bleeding from a cut above her eye. But she could move. She pushed the pod door open and crawled outside. The forest around her was unlike anything she had seen before. The trees were tall and twisted, with bark that looked like purple stone. The leaves were orange and red, even though it was not autumn here. Strange flowers grew everywhere, glowing softly in colors she did not have names for. The air smelled clean and fresh, like rain and growing things. Small creatures made sounds in the distance. The twin suns of this world were high in the sky, casting everything in golden light. It would have been beautiful if Maya was not so scared. She went back to the escape pod and found her emergency pack. It had survived the crash, thankfully. She opened it and looked at what she had to work with. 5 days of emergency food. A water purifier that could make any water safe to drink. A solar blanket for warmth. Basic medical supplies. A small knife. A single emergency flare. And her personal grooming kit. Maya almost laughed when she saw it. She had packed it without thinking, the same way she always did before a mission. Her hairbrush, a small mirror, some hair ties. Completely useless for survival. She closed the pack and looked around. She needed shelter, and she needed it before night came. The files had said the Varath were most active at night. Maya started walking. Her ribs screamed with every step, but she kept going. She needed to find somewhere safe, somewhere she could hide and wait for rescue. The escape pod had a distress beacon that should still be working. Someone would come for her eventually. She just had to stay alive until then. After an hour of walking, she found what she was looking for. A rocky hill rose up from the forest floor, covered in thick moss. At the base of the hill, there was a small cave, just big enough for one person. Maya checked inside carefully. The cave was empty, dry, and clean. It went back about 10 feet into the rock. The entrance was narrow enough that she could block it with stones if she needed to. It was perfect. She spent the next few hours making the cave her home. She gathered soft moss for a bed. She piled stones near the entrance. She found a small stream nearby and used her purifier to get clean water. As the twin suns began to set, Maya finally allowed herself to rest. She sat at the mouth of her cave and watched the sky turn from gold to purple to deep blue. Stars appeared, more stars than she had ever seen before. 2 small moons rose over the trees. She thought about her family back on Earth. Her mother, who had begged her not to join the space program. Her younger brother, who had always wanted to be an astronaut himself. They would be worried about her when they heard about the crash. Maya touched the cut on her forehead. It had stopped bleeding, but it still hurt. Everything hurt. She pulled out her emergency food and ate a small portion. She needed to make it last. 5 days of food, and rescue might take longer than that. She would have to figure out how to find food on this planet. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Right now, she was exhausted. Maya wrapped herself in her solar blanket and lay down on her moss bed. The cave was cool but not cold. The sounds of the forest were strange but somehow soothing. Small animals chirped and buzzed. Wind moved through the trees. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But sleep did not come easily. Every sound made her jump. Every rustle in the bushes made her think of the Vareth. She imagined them out there in the darkness, huge and hungry, hunting for prey, hunting for her. Maya told herself to calm down. The cave was hidden. She was safe here. The predators would not find her. She was wrong about that. Sometime in the middle of the night, Maya finally fell asleep. Her body was too tired to stay awake any longer. She dreamed of home, of her mother cooking breakfast, of her brother laughing at something on the television. She did not hear the soft footsteps outside her cave. She did not hear the quiet breathing of the creatures that found her hiding place. She did not feel them squeeze through the narrow entrance one by one. She slept on, unaware that she was no longer alone. The night passed slowly. The 2 moons crossed the sky. The forest grew quiet as the small animals hid from the things that walked in the darkness. And inside the cave, 3 young Vareth cubs curled up around the sleeping human, pressing their warm bodies against hers for heat. They had been alone for 3 days, ever since the older ones had left and never come back. They were hungry and cold and scared. They did not understand what this strange 2-legged creature was. But she was warm. She smelled interesting, and she was the first living thing they had found that did not run away from them. So they stayed. And when morning came, everything would change. Maya woke up because something was touching her face. She kept her eyes closed. Her brain was still foggy from sleep, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The crash. The planet. The predators. Something was breathing next to her ear. Maya felt cold fear run through her whole body. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But she had been trained for dangerous situations, and her training told her to stay still. Do not move. Do not make sudden motions. Assess the situation first. She could feel warm bodies pressed against her sides. More than 1. Maybe 3. They were furry and soft and surprisingly gentle. The breathing sounds were light, not heavy. Young lungs, not adult ones. Something wet pressed against her cheek again. A nose. A small nose, sniffing her. Maya opened her eyes. 3 faces stared back at her from less than a foot away. They had golden eyes that seemed to glow in the dim morning light. Their faces were covered in spotted fur, brown and cream and gray mixed together. They had small ears that pointed forward with interest. Their mouths were closed, hiding their teeth. They were Vareth. But they were not the monsters from the files. They were babies, cubs. The 3 of them were about the size of large dogs, maybe 60 or 70 pounds each. Their fur was fluffy and soft, not sleek like adult predators. Their paws were too big for their bodies, a sure sign that they had a lot of growing left to do. One of them, the largest, had distinctive stripes mixed with her spots. She tilted her head and made a small sound, like a question. Maya held her breath. The striped cub leaned forward and licked her nose. It was so unexpected that Maya laughed. The sound surprised the cubs, and they jumped back, their eyes wide. Then they looked at each other like they were having a silent conversation. The smallest cub, a male with paws that seemed huge compared to his body, crept forward again. He sniffed her hair. He sniffed her hands. He sniffed her pack, which was lying open next to her sleeping spot. His eyes locked onto something inside the pack. Before Maya could stop him, the little cub dove into the pack and came out with something in his mouth. Her hairbrush. He held it like a prize, his tail wagging back and forth. Maya sat up slowly. The other two cubs watched her but did not run away. They seemed curious, more than scared. The small cub with the brush tried to chew on the handle. Then he yelped and dropped it. The bristles had poked his tongue. The striped cub and the third one, who had patches of different colors all over his fur, made sounds that could only be laughter. Short, huffing sounds that shook their whole bodies. The small cub looked embarrassed. He picked up the brush again, more carefully this time, and brought it to Maya. He dropped it in her lap and then pushed his head toward her hand. Maya understood what he wanted. She picked up the brush and, moving very slowly so she would not scare them, she touched it to the fur behind his ears. She pulled it through gently, the same way she brushed her own hair. The cub froze. Then his whole body relaxed. A deep rumbling sound started in his chest. He was purring. Maya kept brushing. The fur was soft and thick, with a few small tangles that came out easily. The cub leaned into her touch, his eyes closing with pleasure. The other two cubs watched with obvious jealousy. The striped one pushed forward and nudged the small one out of the way. She presented her own head to Maya and made a demanding sound. Maya could not help but smile. She had spent years studying alien species. She had seen all kinds of creatures with all kinds of behaviors, but she had never seen anything quite like this. These predators, these supposed monsters, wanted to be brushed like house cats. She spent the next hour grooming all three of them. The striped one liked long strokes down her back. The patched one preferred his belly rubbed. The small one wanted his face brushed, pressing his cheeks against the bristles and purring so loud that Maya could feel the vibration through the floor. When she finally stopped, her arm was tired. The cubs lay around her in a pile, relaxed and content. They did not seem afraid of her at all. Maya looked at them and felt something shift inside her chest. These babies were alone. She could see it now, in the way they clung to her, in the way they pressed against her for warmth. They were orphans. Something had happened to their mother, and they had been left to survive by themselves. They should have been scared of her. She was strange. She smelled different. She was not their kind. But they had chosen to trust her instead. They had crept into her cave in the middle of the night and curled up beside her like she was one of them. Maya did not know why that made her eyes water. She wiped her face and took a deep breath. She needed to think practically. She was still stranded. She still needed to survive until rescue came. And now, she apparently had 3 alien predator cubs depending on her. Her stomach growled loudly. The striped cub lifted her head and looked at Maya. Then she stood up, stretched like a cat, and walked out of the cave. The other two followed her. Maya grabbed her pack and hurried after them. She did not want to lose track of them now. The cubs led her through the forest with easy confidence. They knew this place. They knew where they were going. Maya followed as quickly as her injured ribs allowed, pushing through bushes and climbing over fallen trees. After about 20 minutes, they stopped at a small stream. The water was clear and clean, running over smooth stones. The cubs immediately started drinking. Maya knelt down and used her purifier to fill her water container. Fresh water. That was one problem solved. The striped cub finished drinking and looked at Maya. Then she looked at the water and back at Maya. She made an impatient sound. Maya did not understand at first. Then she saw it. Small fish, silver and quick, darting through the shallow water. The cub wanted to show her where to find food. The striped cub crouched low, her eyes tracking the fish. Her whole body went still. Then, faster than Maya could see, she struck. Water splashed everywhere. When the cub stood up, she had a fish in her mouth. She walked over to Maya and dropped the fish at her feet. It was still alive, flopping on the ground. Maya picked it up quickly. It was about the size of her hand, with scales that shimmered in the sunlight. The cub looked at her expectantly. Maya did not know if these fish were safe to eat. She did not know if they would make her sick. But she knew that she could not hurt this cub's feelings by refusing her gift. She found dry wood and used the emergency kit to start a small fire. The cubs watched with fascination as the flames grew. They had clearly never seen fire before. Maya cleaned the fish with her knife and cooked it over the flames. When it was done, she took a small bite. It tasted good, almost like salmon. Her stomach stopped complaining. The cubs watched her eat with confused expressions. They clearly did not understand why she had put the fish in the fire first. But they did not seem bothered by it. When Maya finished eating, she felt better than she had since the crash. She had water, she had food, she had shelter, and she had 3 new friends who seemed determined to take care of her. The small cub climbed into her lap and presented his head for more brushing. Maya picked up the hairbrush and got to work. She did not know how long she would be stuck on this planet. She did not know if rescue would ever come, but for the first time since she crashed, she did not feel alone. The cub purred, and Maya smiled, and the forest around them seemed a little less scary than before. 5 days passed on Varith 7, and Maya stopped counting the hours until rescue. She had found a new rhythm to her life. Every morning, she woke up surrounded by warm fur and purring sounds. Every evening, she fell asleep the same way. In between, she and the cubs explored, hunted, and spent long hours grooming each other. Yes, grooming each other. It had started on the 3rd day. Maya had been brushing the striped cub, whom she had started calling Stripe in her head, when Stripe suddenly twisted around and started licking Maya's hair. The rough tongue pulled and tugged at the tangled strands. It felt strange but not unpleasant. The patched cub, Patch, watched this with interest. Then he tried to help by using his paws to separate the tangles. His claws came out. Maya yelped and jerked away. Patch looked hurt, his ears flattening against his head. He had not meant to scratch her. He just did not know any better. Maya spent the next hour teaching them the word gentle. She would say gentle and touch them softly. Then she would say not gentle and press harder. The cubs were smart. They learned fast. By the end of the day, Patch could run his paws through her hair without extending his claws at all. Now it was a daily ritual. Maya would brush the cubs, working through their fur carefully and thoroughly. Then the cubs would groom her in return, licking her hair and face, running their soft paws over her head and shoulders. It should have been strange. It should have felt wrong. But it did not. It felt natural, like this was how things were supposed to be. The smallest cub, whom Maya called Little One, was her favorite to groom. He would climb into her lap and go completely limp, purring so loud that she could feel it in her bones. His fur was the softest of the 3, still fluffy with baby down. But all 3 cubs had become important to her. They were not just animals anymore. They were family. On the 6th morning, Maya woke up to find Stripe missing from the pile. She sat up quickly, looking around the cave. Patch and Little One were still there, but Stripe was gone. Maya felt a cold fear in her stomach. What if something had happened to her? Then she heard a sound outside the cave, a familiar chirping sound. Maya crawled to the entrance and looked out. Stripe was there, standing in the early morning light. At her feet was a pile of dead animals, small creatures that looked like rabbits with too many legs. Stripe looked at Maya and made a proud sound. She had been hunting. Maya felt her eyes water again. These cubs had been taking care of her since day 1, bringing her fish and showing her where to find water. Now Stripe was hunting for the whole group, making sure everyone had enough to eat. She was only a baby herself, but she was acting like a mother. Maya climbed out of the cave and knelt beside Stripe. She pulled the big cub into a hug, burying her face in the soft fur. Stripe went stiff with surprise. Then she relaxed and started purring. That day, Maya made a decision. She was not going to just wait for rescue anymore. She was going to build a real camp, a real home. She was going to make this place safe for herself and her cubs. She started by improving the cave. She gathered more moss for bedding, making the floor soft and comfortable. She built a fire pit at the entrance, where she could cook without filling the cave with smoke. She made a simple rack for drying meat, so they would have food even when hunting was bad. The cubs watched her work with curious eyes. Sometimes they tried to help, carrying sticks in their mouths or pushing stones with their paws. Mostly they just got in the way, but Maya did not mind. Their company made the work easier. By the end of the day, the cave looked like a proper camp, Maya sat on her favorite rock and looked at what she had built. It was not much, but it was hers. It was theirs. Patch came and sat beside her. He looked at the cave, then at Maya, then back at the cave. He made a sound that sounded almost like approval. Maya scratched behind his ears. He was not bad at this sort of thing, Patch. He was the observer of the group, always watching, always learning. Stripe was the leader, brave and protective. Little One was the baby, playful and sweet. And Patch was the thinker. They made a good team, the four of them. That night, Maya did something she had not done since she was a child. She talked to them. Not just commands or warnings or words like gentle and good. Real talking, like she would talk to a friend. She told them about Earth, about the blue sky and the green grass and the oceans that went on forever. She told them about her mother, who made the best food in the whole city, and her brother, who wanted to see the stars someday. She told them about her dreams, her fears, her hopes. The cubs did not understand her words, but they understood her tone. They pressed close to her, offering comfort, listening even though they could not respond. When Maya finally stopped talking, her throat was dry and her eyes were wet. She had not realized how much she needed to say these things out loud. Little One climbed into her lap and pushed his head against her chin. It was his way of hugging. Maya hugged him back and laughed through her tears. The next morning, she found something that changed everything. She had been following Stripe to a new hunting ground when she heard a strange sound. Beeping. Electronic beeping, coming from somewhere in the forest. Maya's heart jumped. Her distress beacon. Someone had found her signal. She ran toward the sound, pushing through bushes and jumping over roots. The cubs ran with her, not understanding what was happening but matching her excitement. She found the source of the beeping in a small clearing. It was not her beacon. It was something else entirely. A metal box sat on the ground about the size of a suitcase. It had lights on the front that blinked red and blue. A small antenna stuck up from the top. Maya approached carefully. The box had writing on the side. Galactic Union Survey Equipment. Property of Research Division. It was a monitoring station. The Union had placed it here to study the Verith from a distance. And based on the blinking lights, it was still transmitting data somewhere, which meant someone was watching this planet. Maya looked at the box, then at her cubs. A plan started to form in her mind. She did not know how to contact the research division directly. But she knew how to get their attention. She just had to do something interesting enough for them to notice. She sat down in front of the monitoring station and pulled out her hairbrush. The cubs gathered around her, curious as always. Maya looked directly at where she guessed the camera would be. Then she started her grooming ritual, right there in front of the equipment, where anyone watching would see. A human. Grooming Verith predators. The cubs lining up for their turns, purring and relaxed. If that did not get someone's attention, nothing would. She did not know if her plan would work. She did not know if anyone was even watching the feed from this remote monitoring station. But it was the best idea she had. So every day after that, Maya and the cubs returned to the clearing. Every day, they performed their grooming ritual in front of the cameras. Every day, Maya hoped that somewhere, someone was watching. And somewhere, someone was. On the 9th day, the adult Verith found them. Maya had been teaching Little One a new game. She would throw a stick, and he would run after it and bring it back. It was like playing with a dog, except the dog weighed 70 pounds and had claws that could cut through metal. Little One loved the game. He would bound after the stick with his ears flying back and his tongue hanging out. When he caught it, he would prance back to Maya like he had won a great battle. Stripe and Patch watched from the shade of a nearby tree. They were too dignified for such games, or so they pretended. But Maya had seen Stripe's tail twitch every time Little One caught the stick. Maya threw the stick one more time. Little One shot after it like a furry arrow. Then he stopped. His whole body went stiff. His ears pointed forward. A low sound came from his throat. Not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. Maya turned to look at what he was seeing. 3 adult Verith stood at the edge of the clearing. They were huge. The files had said they were the size of tigers, but that description did not do them justice. They were taller than Maya's shoulder at the head. Their bodies were thick with muscle. Their fur was dark and sleek, not fluffy like the cubs, and they were looking directly at her. Maya's hand went to her emergency flare, the only thing she had that could even pretend to be a weapon. She knew it would not save her. These creatures could kill her in seconds if they wanted to. The largest adult, a male with a torn ear and scars across his muzzle, stepped forward. His golden eyes never left Maya's face. Stripe suddenly moved. The cub ran toward the adults, not away from them. She made loud sounds, excited chirping mixed with deeper rumbles. She ran circles around the scarred male's legs. Maya understood. These were not strangers. These were family. The scarred male sniffed Stripe carefully. Then he licked the top of her head, a gesture of greeting and affection. The other two adults did the same to Patch and Little One. They were a pack. The cubs had found their pack again. Maya felt relief and sadness mixed together in her chest. The cubs were safe now. They had adults to protect them, to teach them, to keep them alive. They did not need her anymore. She took a step backward, toward the trees. Maybe she could slip away while the pack was distracted. Maybe they would let her go. The scarred male's head snapped toward her. He took a step forward, then another. His eyes were fixed on her like she was prey. Every instinct Maya had screamed at her to run, but she did not run. She stood her ground, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Little One bounded between them. The cub grabbed Maya's sleeve in his teeth and tugged her forward. He made urgent sounds looking back and forth between Maya and the scarred male. The adult Vareth stopped. He tilted his head, studying the cub's behavior. Then he looked at Maya again, but this time with less hostility, more curiosity. Little One pulled harder. Maya let herself be led forward. She was close enough now to see every detail of the scarred male's face. His fur was darker around his muzzle, graying with age. His eyes were deep and intelligent. The scars on his face told stories of battles survived. He was old, Maya realized. Old and experienced. The leader of this pack. The scarred male leaned forward and pressed his nose against Maya's chest. He sniffed her, long and slow. His breath was warm and smelled like meat. Then he pushed his forehead against her and started to purr. Maya almost collapsed with relief. She was shaking so hard that her legs felt weak. But she managed to stay standing. She managed to lift her hand and place it on the big male's head. His fur was coarser than the cub's fur, thick and wiry. But he leaned into her touch the same way Little One did. His purr grew louder. The other two adults approached. One was a female with sleek brown fur and eyes that seemed to look right through Maya. The other was a younger male, not quite full-grown, with spots that had not yet faded. They sniffed her. They pressed against her. They accepted her. Maya stood in the middle of a pack of apex predators, surrounded by creatures that could kill her with a single swipe of their claws. And she had never felt safer in her life. The female nudged Maya's pack with her nose. Something inside caught her interest. She poked her head inside and came out with a hairbrush in her teeth. She presented it to Maya with obvious intent. Maya laughed. She could not help it. This massive predator, this apex hunter, wanted to be groomed like a house cat. She took the brush and got to work. The female's fur was thick and needed more effort than the cub's fur. But she was patient, holding still while Maya worked through tangles and smoothed rough spots. When Maya finished, the female made a sound of deep satisfaction. The scarred male was next. Then the young male. Then the cubs again because they were jealous and demanding. Maya groomed them all, one after another, until her arm ached and her brush was full of alien fur. When she finally stopped, the whole pack was relaxed and content. They lay in a pile around her, cubs and adults together. The scarred male was at her back, his big body warm and solid. Stripe was at her feet, already half asleep. Little One was in her lap, purring so loud that the ground seemed to vibrate. This was her pack now. She belonged to them, and they belonged to her. The thought should have scared her. These were wild animals, predators at the top of their food chain. She was a fragile human with no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. But humans had other weapons: kindness, patience, the ability to understand what another creature needed and provide it. Maya had given the cubs what they needed most: gentle touch, consistent care, a sense of safety. And in return, they had given her everything. That night, the pack did not go back to Maya's cave. Instead, the scarred male led them to a different place, a wide den carved into the side of a hill. It was bigger than Maya's cave, with room for all of them. This was the pack's home, and now it was her home too. Maya lay down in the middle of the pile, surrounded by warm bodies and soft purring sounds. She looked up at the strange stars of this alien sky. Somewhere out there, people were looking for her. Her distress beacon was still transmitting. Rescue would come eventually, but for the first time since she crashed, Maya was not sure she wanted to be rescued. She closed her eyes and let the sound of purring carry her to sleep. The pack was quiet in the darkness. The cubs dreamed whatever dreams young predators dream. The adults kept watch, their ears alert for any danger. And Maya slept peacefully, safer than she had ever been in her life. In the morning, she would figure out what came next. But for now, this was enough. This was more than enough. This was home. The rescue shuttle appeared on the 12th day. Maya heard it before she saw it. A low rumbling sound that did not belong to this forest, getting louder with every second. The pack heard it too. Their ears swiveled toward the sky, and the adults made low warning sounds. Maya stood up from where she had been grooming the scarred male. She shaded her eyes against the twin suns and looked up. A small ship was descending through the clouds. It was silver and sleek, with the blue markings of the Galactic Union on its side. A rescue shuttle. They had finally found her. The ship landed in the biggest clearing, the one where the monitoring station sat. Maya's daily grooming performances had worked. Someone had been watching. Someone had sent help. She started walking toward the clearing. The pack followed her, all 6 adults and all 3 cubs. They moved in formation around her, protective and alert. The shuttle's door opened. A woman in a blue uniform stepped out, followed by 2 men carrying medical equipment. They stopped when they saw what was coming toward them. Maya could only imagine what they were seeing. A human woman, dirty and thin, walking at the center of a pack of apex predators. The most dangerous creatures on this planet, and they were following her like trained dogs. The woman in blue raised her hand, a gesture that was half greeting and half surrender. Maya recognized the insignia on her uniform. Commander rank. This was the person in charge. She walked closer until she was about 20 feet from the shuttle. The pack stopped with her, forming a protective circle. The commander found her voice. It came through the shuttle's speakers, amplified and clear. "Lieutenant Collins, is that you?" Maya nodded. "That's me. Sorry for the delayed response to your hails. I've been a little busy." The commander looked at the pack surrounding Maya. Her face showed a mix of fear and amazement. "Those are Verath, adult Verath. They should have killed you on sight. They're friendly." The commander's voice went higher. "They're what?" Little One chose that moment to push his way to the front of the pack. He looked at the shuttle, then at Maya, then back at the shuttle. He made a curious chirping sound. "Don't be scared," Maya told him. "These are friends." She hoped she was right about that. The commander stepped forward slowly. She was brave. Maya had to give her that. Most people would have run back into the shuttle and locked the door. "I'm Commander Lauren Hayes," the woman said. "We received your distress signal 11 days ago. When we saw the footage from the monitoring station, we thought it had to be a trick. Some kind of equipment malfunction." "No malfunction," Maya said. "Just a crash landing and some unexpected guests." Hayes looked at the pack again. The scarred male was watching her with intelligent eyes, his body relaxed but ready to move if needed. "How?" Hayes asked. "The Verath are territorial predators. They don't bond with other species. All of our research says they should have attacked you immediately." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her hairbrush. It was worn now, the bristles bent and full of alien fur. but it was still the most important thing she owned. I groomed them, she said simply. They came to me as orphaned cubs, cold and scared and alone. I brushed their fur and kept them warm. That's all it took. Hayes stared at the brush like it was some kind of alien technology. You groomed them, she repeated. Every day, twice a day actually. They really like it. As if to prove her point, Stripe pushed forward and pressed her head against Maya's hand. Maya started brushing automatically, her movements smooth and practiced. Stripe purred. The sound was loud enough to reach the shuttle. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. The xenobiologists are going to lose their minds, she said. We've been studying the Vareth for 200 years. No one ever thought to try brushing them. Maya shrugged. Sometimes the simple answer is the right one. The two medical officers had edged forward, their curiosity overcoming their fear. One of them, a young man with wide eyes, was taking pictures with his datapad. Maya looked at her pack, then back at the shuttle. She had a decision to make. Commander Hayes, she said, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. The three cubs, Stripe, Patch, and Little One. They're orphans. They imprinted on me when they were alone and scared. I can't just leave them here. Hayes frowned. The Vareth are protected wildlife. We can't remove them from the planet without approval from the highest levels. I know. Maya took a deep breath. That's why I'm not asking to remove them. I'm asking to stay. Silence. Hayes looked at Maya like she had grown a second head. You want to stay here? On a planet with no other humans, surrounded by apex predators? I want to establish a research station, Maya said. The idea had been forming in her mind for days now. Proper facilities, proper equipment. A place where we can study the Vareth up close and learn to communicate with them. She gestured at the pack around her. These animals are not mindless killers. They're social, intelligent, and they respond to grooming behaviors as a bonding mechanism. We could learn so much from them, but only if someone stays here and builds a relationship with them. And that someone would be you? Maya nodded. I already have a relationship with them. They trust me. The adults accepted me into their pack. That's never happened before with any species in the galaxy. Hayes was quiet again, thinking. The medical officers had stopped taking pictures and were listening intently. It would take months to get approval, Hayes said finally. Maybe longer. You would need funding, equipment, staff. I can wait. Maya looked at her pack. We can wait. The scarred male had moved to stand beside her. He pressed his big head against her shoulder, his purr rumbling through her whole body. Hayes watched this. Something in her expression softened. I'll make the calls, she said. No promises, but I'll try. Maya felt hope bloom in her chest. It was not a yes, but it was not a no either. It was a chance. The shuttle stayed for 3 days. The medical officers checked Maya's injuries and gave her supplies. Hayes sent reports back to the Union and had long conversations with people Maya could not see. The pack kept their distance from the shuttle, but they did not leave. They stayed close to Maya, watching over her like she was one of their own. On the 3rd day, Hayes came to Maya with news. Preliminary approval, she said. They want a research station. And they want you to run it. Maya's legs went weak. She sat down hard on a nearby rock. Are you serious? Construction will start in 3 months. Until then, you'll have supply drops every 2 weeks. Hayes smiled. Congratulations, Lieutenant. Or should I say, Director Collins. Maya could not speak. She could not find the words. Little One solved the problem by climbing into her lap and demanding attention. Maya picked up her brush and started grooming him, her hands shaking. Hayes watched for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. A new hairbrush. Clean and unused, with soft bristles and a sturdy handle. I thought you might need a backup, she said. Maya took the brush. Her vision was blurry with tears. Thank you, she managed to say. Hayes nodded. Take care of them, Director. And let them take care of you. The shuttle left that afternoon. Maya stood in the clearing and watched it rise into the sky until it disappeared among the clouds. Then she turned back to her pack. They were waiting for her, all 9 of them, their golden eyes patient and trusting. "Well," Maya said, "I guess we're staying." Stripe purred. Patch wagged his tail. Little One climbed back into her lap. And the scarred male pressed his forehead against Maya's, a gesture that needed no translation. Welcome home. 6 months later, the Verith 7 research station was complete. Director Maya Collins stood at the entrance and watched her staff arrive on the first shuttle. She was clean now, wearing a proper uniform, her hair brushed and neat. But her favorite brush, the one that had started everything, still sat on her desk where she could see it every day. Stripe, fully grown now and magnificent, pushed her massive head through the window Maya had designed just for her. Maya smiled and picked up the brush. Some things never changed,